Okay, welcome back to our Partner Academy series. My name is Samantha Bontemps. I'm a Senior Channel Marketing Manager here at Vonage. We've moved this to a bi-weekly cadence, and for the rest of the quarter, we're going to focus on sales enablement topics. Today, we're joined by Dan Reinbold, our VP of Sales Enablement, and Jen, Principal Contact Center Sales Engineer. Dan has a deep history and understanding of enablement and management programs from both provider and the partner side. He was responsible for creating the sales training and management programs that helped launch Paytac from the startup it was to the $2 billion company that was sold to Windstream. He also spent time at a national master agency as VP of operations. He started us in February of this year and already in his short time has revolutionized our sales training program. John Flynn has presented a few times for us, and we're fortunate he agrees to keep coming back. He is our principal contact center sales engineer and brings with him over 35 years product experience. He's been working with the Vonage Contact Center for 4 years, and this past year, we were lucky enough to get him to join the Channel and Alliances team to work with our master agents and partners on enablement and education initiatives. I'm going to turn it over to Dan, who's going to teach us about finding contact center opportunities and, more importantly, closing them. Then John will show us a demo and lightly touch on a few of our new integrations outside of Salesforce. Okay, take it away, Dan.
All right. Well, thank you, Sam. I appreciate it. Hi, everybody. This is Dan Reinbold. So, my goodness, what a buildup. All right, we can only go downhill from there. So let's get started. So first of all, today we are going to zero in on one of Vonage's product offerings, service offerings, if you will, which is the Vonage Contact Center solution. So while we have many solutions, today's focus will be for contact center. We're going to talk about ways that you can get into bigger companies, sell bigger deals, and they're going to be stickier deals for longer periods of time. So we'll get into that, but let's look at what we're going to cover over the next 15 to 20 minutes with me, and then of course jumping into John's demo, and then I believe at the end we're going to save some time to try to do some Q&A. So the first thing, when you're looking at your agency, when you're looking at your customer base, you're going to ask yourself, well, why should I sell Vonage? So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what's Vonage Contact Centers, CTF. Now, I know that we all love our TLAs, our three-letter acronyms. I mean, when you have a acronym for three-letter acronyms, you know the industry loves them. So I made up my own. So CTF stands for Claim to Fame. So what's Vonage's claim to fame? What's our VCC's claim to fame? Then we're going to talk about who's the target. We're going to give you some real examples of things that were sold recently and who was sold, to give you examples of what your agency could do and the prospects that you could bring in. We're even going to throw out a couple key OEQs. And most of you probably know on this call, OEQ stands for open-ended questions. So we are going to be littering this presentation with those TLAs. And then lastly, we'll show a slide with resources, but obviously all of you will have Samantha, myself, John, all of us available to you to share information on further resources. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. And I'm going to start with talking about the proverbial requisite marketing slide that all of you know and love. This is our marketing slide. So I will tell you this. I've worked at a variety of companies in communications over the last 20 years. And I will say that Vonage's legal vetting process for customer stories and statistics is extremely good, extremely draconian. And so when we were able to come out and say we're the world's most flexible cloud communications platform, I was like, wow, that's pretty powerful. But what it really means to you is that you can go into companies and help eliminate all these disparate silos of solutions that they have, integrate their stacks, and you can do that with our suite of applications, communications APIs, and combinations of the two. So we have our platform, we have our APIs over the top, we've got a global carrier network, cloud infrastructure, a global footprint. We can do third-party integrations, which we're going to get into today. You can see on the right a summary of those, and we are going to zero in on Contact Center, which is up there under applications. So these are some of the reasons why you would want to sell Vonage, because, and we'll talk about the stack in a little bit. So why do you want to sell Vonage? Look, having been educated at TBI under Jeff Shepstone, who I consider a friend and I work for. Jeff taught me, and you're going to see on this slide one of the things that he taught me about. But one of the things I know that appeals to masters and sub-agents and agents in general, and all of us, I believe, is, hey, can we make commissions? Can we bring in deals? But if you see this long-tailed lemur there, ring-tailed lemur, you can see he has an extremely long tail. And Jeff taught me about the tail of the deal, which is how long are we keeping a customer? How long is that provider that we're using? How long are they keeping their customers? Because if they're keeping their customers and we sold it, then we're going to get our residual commissions for a longer period of time. And you know what? With the resources that we bring to the table, you can do that easily. So to me, this is about you guys focusing on Vonage because you want to earn commissions, you want to earn them for a longer period of time, and you want to make it pretty easy for yourself to do so. And hey, look, even on this call today, you can see the engineering resources. When John does his demo, these are the things that we bring to the table and why you should keep Vonage as top of mind. So I will tell you this. Now, this depends on the cohort, which is the fancy name I've learned for groups. So this depends on the group that you're selling into. If you sell larger enterprise customers, those customers stay with Vonage on average of 165 months. That's nearly 14 years. Now, when you spread that out over the other cohorts, the average when you include SMB is about 55 months, which is 4.5 years. So that's a long time that we can retain those customers. And all of you know, you're not naive on this call. The better the solution, the bigger the solution, the more variety of the solution that you sell, the stickier the customer is, the longer it lasts, the longer they stay with you, and the longer you get to earn money. Now you look at this slide. So I do my presentations a little bit differently. Mine are picture oriented. That's what I can relate to, but I'm hoping that the images stick with you and then you remember Vonage and why Vonage. So this picture of these rocks, this represents all shapes and all sizes, which is the type of businesses you could sell. Now look, some of you love to go after the big rocks, and we do too. But if you're hitting the singles and the doubles, Vonage fits in that sweet spot too. Even with Cloud Contact Center, we like to see Salesforce, and this is important, Salesforce integrations of 20 seats and up, but we're selling, several hundred seats, 400 seats, 500 seats, et cetera. But if your agency's starting with some of the smaller size deals, we can do those too. And here's what's also nice. You can do it locally, you can do it globally. We have offices all around the world. We just opened an office in Singapore. We have opened new markets in Canada. We have a big presence in EMEA, Australia. I talk to our VP out there every couple of weeks. So we're all over the place. So don't be afraid. Don't be intimidated. If a company you're talking to is global, you can think Vonage. Now, look, we all are in unprecedented times of moving people to work from home more than we ever have before. And this is something that we are extremely good at. So you look at these other two pictures and you're like, okay, Reinbold's lost his mind. What's with the wildebeest? Well, they're migrating. What's with the car? Well, that's speed. But the point is, and that what you should remember and take away is that Vonage can move people to work from home and migrate them faster than almost anybody. We have companies and stories, even on our website, where we're migrating people in days sometimes, particularly in lieu of these times with the pandemic. So we can do it. We can move them to work from home, but we can migrate them faster. And that means you have an edge in the deal, which is what we're always looking for as salespeople, is we're looking for that little bit of an edge. So now, what are some of the things that you want to consider? One of the things that you should walk away in your mind with this presentation is the fact that we integrate ridiculously well with the top CRM in the world. And that top CRM, yes, folks, you know it, it's Salesforce. It's number one. We have been working with Salesforce for 10 years, and we integrate seamlessly. Now, You could sell our solutions and you could sell VCC as a standalone. You could sell it with our unified communications application, or you could integrate the two. You could do it as a combination and with a variety of CRMs. And now, again, we love our TLAs, workforce management, WFM. So not only have we leveraged that Salesforce relationship, and I'll get to some stats in a second for you guys and ladies on the call, that we are also now working with ServiceNow, workforce management platform, and now also next up, Microsoft Dynamics 365. So we're working with the top names in the industries to cover the CRM workforce management integrations. And what that means to you in that other picture is a target-rich environment. So when you combine the fact that we can be local, we can be global, we can do small companies, we can do big companies, we can interact and integrate with the top CRM in the world, Salesforce, and now ServiceNow, Microsoft Dynamics, or you can even sell smaller companies and unique CRMs with some of our other variations and flavors of our contact center suite, such as what we call Express and Elevate. You can even sell these other types of companies that have different CRMs. We can work with those as well. That provides you with an incredibly rich target environment. So, all right, to make you hungry, if you like pancakes, this is a stack. And the cherry on top of that stack is Vonage, because we own the stack. So when we own the stack, and you can deal with one provider, and we can seamlessly integrate with these big names in the industry, what's that mean to you? Hassle-free. You're dealing with one source, you've got a phone call to make, and that eliminates finger pointing. And for those of you that have been in the industry as long as I do, you know that when you've got multiple providers, multiple carriers out there, there's oftentimes with your prospects, with your valuable customers, finger pointing going on, and nobody likes that. We take accountability, we own the stack, and that makes hassle-free convenience for you guys. So what's up next? All right. For those of you that like to sell to your customers with statistics, and look, every prospect has their modality of selling and things that appeal to them, things that will help what I call convincer strategies. So if you want some statistics, here's some great ones. Number one, App Exchange user reviews for contact center for Salesforce. Number one. Now, you know, you could be number one and have a few reviews, a couple good reviews, but look at that, 782 plus and counting customer reviews on the Salesforce App Exchange user review, and 4.9 out of 5. You can't get much higher than that. So we have over 800 plus global customers. We have been, as I mentioned earlier, 10 plus years integrating with Salesforce. And I don't know who counted these, but I'd love to talk to them. 1.5 billion interactions powered on Salesforce. So, but like I said, this is all vetted through our legal department, so we're good. All right, for those of you that say, hey, look, what about other sources? What about other companies or awards that you might have won? So if your customers like to hear about awards, you know, and statistics, or if they're like me, we'll get to referrals in a minute. Here are some of the awards that we have won in 2019 alone, and we have more adding up in 2020. So 2019 Contact Center World Award. So a couple of these very powerful, but again, bringing leverage for your sales process to bear. And by the way, all of these things, if you work with your channel manager, you work with your representation, you work with our marketing department, we can make these materials available for you. Next up, some companies love referrals, love logos. And some people say, well, do you deal with big companies? And the reason they do, and you can certainly point this out to them in the sales process, is look, if you have a company that's as large as Adidas, and they have vetted Vonage and chose them as their provider of services, well, then you could potentially rest assured too that, you know, if you're smaller and you don't have the resources to do the due diligence Adidas did, or Uber did, or Adobe did, or StubHub, hey, it gives you more confidence that if they're choosing Vonage, maybe you could too. Maybe you should too. And so consequently, here's some of the logos. This is just a very small sampling of logos. If you like selling in that way, this is a great way to do it. So we have lots of logos we can share. And the other thing we could do is we could find logos in your state, in your geography, and obviously even globally. So I picked, for those of you that like to say, hey, look, here's a particular story. Here's a quote from an actual customer. This is from MTD. And quite frankly, I picked this because I want my lawn to look like the one that this young lady's mowing here. So I picked this particular story out of the hundreds of stories that we have. But I also picked it because in our industry, oftentimes there's a focus on net promoter score, not only of the company, but hey, what's that client's net promoter score? How do their customers view them? And so consequently, when I see that we can affect a 20-point increase in net promoter score for MTD, that's powerful. And here's something that goes hand in hand with that. And I didn't even create this particular slide, but yet here we go with not only one, but two great three-letter acronyms, not even counting MTD. A 12% increase in FCR. FCR stands for First Call Resolution. Now, all of you know that when you have these two things, if you can resolve your customer issues, your questions, first time, first contact, that's powerful, and it goes hand in hand with increasing NPS scores. So these are some of the stories that are available to you when you think Vonage and when you want to go out into the marketplace and sell Vonage. All right, so next up, we're going to talk about some of the targets. And I'm going to really focus on two of big targets here, and that's the sales organizations and service organizations. And if you think about it, an awful lot of companies in what we call the TAM, another great TLA, the total addressable market in sales and service. These are two huge areas for you to go hit that addressable market. And this is all part of that addressable market. Are they selling to customers? Do they provide service to customers? What's important to them? What about their IT departments, even for their employees? We talked about some of that and moving people to work from anywhere, work from home. But now let's talk about what are some key questions that you could ask to start. Well, look, if you've been following along to this juncture, you know that one of the top questions, which is why it's cleverly been bolded there by me, is what CRM are you using? What customer resource management tool are you using? And if you hear ServiceNow, if you hear Salesforce, the number one answer you'll probably hear. You hear Microsoft, or if you hear some off-brand, remember, Salesforce, we have deep integration. That should get you excited. Vonage should be the company you're thinking about representing into that account. And then I always like to follow up with, how do you feel about that CRM? How is your organization integrated communications into the CRM? Now, that's a key question, because if they're having issues, this is where you're going to find it out. And if it's Salesforce in particular, there's going to be a fit with Vonage. You talk about different KPIs, key performance indicators. How are you and your team evaluated? What are the KPIs? Because we can go back right into Salesforce. They never have to leave Salesforce. We can do so many things with our contact center, direct routing to the right agent for the right people, all kinds of different things, because we can route by Salesforce object. So, and to me, another key question, how might your organization improve if you had better metrics and analytics? So then let's talk about, all right, for contact center management, we have omni-channel dashboards across contact center, bringing in that CRM data, getting better analytics. But then the other thing that we can provide, it goes along with another area, which is employee retention. Do they have gamification for higher productivity among their reps? By the way, what APIs do they have that help enable workflows? We have Conversation Analyzer. It integrates with Salesforce Einstein. again, giving companies the seamless ability to enrich their conversations with pure data and artificial intelligence. So now, what are the key people you want to talk to in service organizations? Well, you would talk to the COO, the Chief Operating Officer, Chief Customer Officer, the VP of Customer Service, et cetera. So you can target service organizations and their contact centers. And one of the key things that they usually want to do is they want to improve the customer experience, also known as the CX. So ask them to explain how their organization approaches the customer experience. What are the key performance indicators used to evaluate the department? How do they communicate with their customers right now? Do they need chat? Do they need omni-channel? Are they lacking in these areas? How happy are they with their customer service scores, with their net promoter scores? Do they want to increase them? You go back and you look at that slide with MTD and that 20-point increase in NPS. How satisfied are with their call queuing times? You know, people don't like to wait. We're very impatient. How would they like to improve them? What compliance requirements does their organization have for callers interacting either with customers or with prospects? Because right now we have Conversation Analyzer, and one of the things that you could do is it can absolutely help make sure that your agents, meaning that company's contact center agents, are being compliant, because they can go back, they can look for keywords, they can look at what they're saying, and they can make sure that their reps are compliant and they're not having issues in that regard. That's powerful. Try not to forget that. Now, what data insights are they missing? What do they feel that they could help manage them better? And then same goes for sales organizations. Who are you talking to? Ideally, you start at the top. You're talking to the chief revenue officer, the vice presidents of sales, the SVPs of sales ops, et cetera. So anything in the sales function. And going back to the core questions, what are the metrics? What are the things that they are evaluated on? How do they track and ensure that leads are being followed up on properly? Hey, look, a lot of companies are engaging in a lot of marketing, but what's going on with those valuable leads? How are they being tracked? How are they making sure the contacts are good? I like to talk about how significant is the revenue contribution to the company of the contact center. That is a very powerful question. If they answer that for you, that's going to set the tone for the rest of the conversation. Here's another thing. When you are trying to, run a call center, as many of you know, and some of you have even had your own call centers, that sometimes you have some turnover, or the turnover is higher in those particular types of roles. Well, if you need to ramp people faster, doing that with all the things that we integrate with, we can get people trained up faster with all kinds of things. We can then make sure they're better on the phone faster with things like what we call whisper technology, where you can actually coach the person during a live call, and all these other ability of our contact center to integrate with artificial intelligence, Conversation Analyzer, et cetera. So next, let's talk about a couple customer stories. So one of the ones that is recent is the Trevor Project. And the Trevor Project is, you talk about mission critical. It's a 24/7 suicide prevention line. You can see the quote here from Danielle, their director of Lifeline at the Trevor Project. They went with Vonage, and COVID-19 was really being disruptive to the business, but it also was creating even more business, meaning they're getting more calls. Really important that people could get on the phone with their counselors. We were able to go in there with Salesforce, integrate with that, increase their uptime by nearly 100%. It was just it's a great story. So, and fully transitioning them, go back to that slide I showed you with the work from home, the migration, and the speed. And you look at this bullet point of able to transition a fully remote counselor staff for the first time in its 22-year history with the help of Vonage. and our support teams. So extremely important. Next up, here's a quote. Penn Information Systems and Computing, University of Pennsylvania. We partnered with Vonage earlier in the year to launch a fully integrated unified communications experience to their user. And when the pandemic hit, this partnership enabled us to get our teams up and running in 24 hours. So going back to my speed comment, you can see I tried to bring data to support the points we made in the slides. Here's some resources, but I did want to talk. Let me flip back and take 1 minute. And I'm going to go back to the MTD slide, and I'm just going to tell you a couple other success stories. I won't name these companies because these are hot off the press, just sold in July. We sold a company I'm going to call X, 157,000 annual revenue. So about 13,000 plus in monthly recurring revenue. It's a software company. It was a combination of UC that we took actually from 8x8. They had contact center with TalkDesk. They had integration issues with Salesforce and Zendesk. Here's what was interesting to me. Their customers, some of their customers are NASA, SpaceX, and Tesla, and they were complaining. We were able to go in, show the integration we have with Salesforce and Zendesk, and we were able to take that business. That business could have potentially come through your agency. Another, a transportation company, 250,000 in annual revenue, ARR, annual recurring revenue sold. They didn't like their in-contact solution. They wanted to consolidate other remote ones. They consolidated their contact centers with Vonage. Another company, I'm going to call it K. It's a software company as well. And they didn't have a fully embedded contact center. They went with Vonage. 310,000 in annual recurring revenue was that sale. So there's a couple more examples in addition to MTD. And as they become in Vonage what we call PR approved, meaning they're marketing vetted, that the customer's okay with us mentioning their names, those stories will come out in the future. But at this point, I'm just going to put up the resource slide. These are some links. We'll talk to Sam about sharing this deck with everybody on the call. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over for our demo to the illustrious, intelligent, handsome John Flynn.
Dan, thank you for that introduction and a lot of good information that was shared in the front half here. So I'll be stealing some of your slides shamelessly. Let me jump over here very quickly. Let's do it. Okay, trusting that you can see my screen.
Yes, you're good.
Okay,
We can see it.
Perfect. So I'm only going to show two quick slides, which are really just a setup for what we're going to show you in the demo. Dan had done a good job at laying the foundation for the breadth of the world's most flexible communication platform. We're really going to focus in this demo primarily on the contact center technology, which is really a combination of the historical New Voice Media integration to contact center, along with newer technology, or artificial intelligence, which is through a recent acquisition, and that has enabled us to enable what we call virtual voice assistants. So now for phone calls that come in addition to all of the normal DTMF prompting that many people are familiar with via an IVR, you can now create more conversational call flows where customers will just conversationally tell you why they're calling, and assuming it's one of the valid reasons, you have call flows that will take them down and conversationally provide them with information, offering not only a better customer experience, but also in many cases call deflection. And we've seen a lot of customer examples in this COVID-19 environment where that was very critical because they got big spikes in their call flows. They couldn't hire staff immediately, but they could deploy virtual voice assistants to peel off 30% of that inbound call volume, while also delivering a good experience for those callers. What we're going to show you here in the demo really, and it talks to a little bit of the flexibility that Dan mentioned, is the fact that we really can enable agents to be functional anywhere in the world that they have a browser connection. And so what we're going to talk about in this demo is really applying as customers, prospects, leads call into your business, or as you would call out to them through proactive outreach, applying a set of capabilities and functionality that are contact center features and functions that people who manage large inbound or large volumes of outbound calls tend to like these functionalities. The real magic in the Salesforce integrated model is the fact that we have more fully exploited the API than any other vendor on the marketplace. And so we literally can integrate to any of the Salesforce clouds, even the new ones that are emerging, Health Cloud, Financial Services Clouds, and other clouds that will be announced in the future. And as they create new, what they call custom objects, we can natively just interact with those objects as they come out. It's that level of integration. The lower level of the slide is showing how we have very robust and flexible telephony underpinning. So we have the ability for each agent to include what's called a soft phone, and I'm going to show you that in the demo, where I just answer the calls within the browser. But sometimes that's not preferable, either because I may be on a low bandwidth connection, I don't have the right headset, could be a number of different logistics. At my choosing, I can put any direct dial number. So that might be my VBC or Vonage Business Communication direct dial number. It might be brand X PBX number. As long as that's a direct dial phone, I can choose it as a landing number for all of my phone activities. Likewise, I could plug in a home office line. I could plug in a mobile phone. So a lot of people were having trouble as early as or late as yesterday with the tropical storm that raced up the coast. And a lot of customers made use of this flexibility as they had to bump around and figure out how was the best way to keep their agents communicating. And we got a lot of positive feedback that this kind of infrastructure and this kind of architecture is really valuable to our clients. So what I'm going to do is jump into the actual product demo. I have an instance here of Salesforce. You're looking at what's called the Service Console view within Lightning. Lightning is the view that Salesforce is going forward with. We do support other environments. There's something called Classic Environment and Classic Console. We support all those environments because of our deep history and integration with Salesforce. And as mentioned, we also have additional integrations, which we've announced this year into ServiceNow and into Microsoft Dynamics, which actually we are announcing this week. And so those integrations may not offer all of the functionality that I'm going to show you here, but they certainly will be progressing along those paths as we go forward. Now, in the instance of Salesforce, we integrate as what's called a managed package. And once we do that, we're going to create an experience for that agent as if Salesforce has just magically grown a very complete voice functionality. We integrate our contact pad and use this lower utility bar for other user elements that are part of the integration. So we do have the ability to integrate into omni-channel environments, so chats, emails that may be routed. We have the ability to route them through the Vonage engine and integrate those as well. Dan had hinted about workforce management. We have built-in integrations with Verint and Monet, which are two industry-leading platforms out there, and they can, out of the box, be integrated right into the same Salesforce environment. With the contact pad, agents have that quick ability, as I mentioned, to change their settings. So if for some reason the soft phone is not a preferable option, I'm not in a great bandwidth environment, I can just plug in that PBX phone number, that cell phone number, whatever number is appropriate for me. Now my connection's fine, I'm just going to utilize that, but it's literally that easy for an agent to make that kind of change to impact their operation. Agents also will have the ability to control their presence or state, and this becomes important. You can create custom states, and you can also utilize this to capture time that agents are spending on activities other than the phone calls, because we're going to do a very good job of accounting for all of the time on the phone calls. I'm going to show you some of the detailed records that we write about those phone calls, but you can also capture offline activity, case research activity, or other things that they may be doing. In this first call, I'm going to introduce you to that virtual voice assistant. So you're going to hear this caller call in, and they're going to want to do a inquiry on an outstanding order that they have. We're going to allow that virtual voice assistant to communicate with Salesforce. They're going to greet that caller by name and allow them to look up that order. And then in this use case, we're going to have the caller want to transfer to an agent because the order is back ordered, And so we're going to pop open the order onto the desktop of the agent when we present the call. So you'll hear that momentarily as I get this call launched. Here we go.
Welcome to the Vonage Contact Center demo. Unable to support you with the status of your order or product help. So how can I help you today?
I need some help with my order.
Welcome back, Jason. Is this about your most recent order or an earlier order?
Most recent.
The status of your order is backordered. The delivery date is December 28th, 2020. Is there anything you would like to change for that order?
Yes.
Okay. We will connect you with one of our representatives. Please wait a moment.
So I've put this agent in a non-ready state on purpose so I can show you a couple additional things that happen as the call queues. So that caller is now in queue, and you can see I got an indication here in my contact pad. I can see that it's a phone call, and I can actually see it's one of our priority callers because we know who that caller is within Salesforce. We can categorize it. If it was a digital interaction, it would show up in my queue in this other column. Now, while this caller is in queue, they're being presented with the option of, hey, if you don't have the time to wait in queue, you can press 1 and we'll call you back as soon as the agent becomes available. And so your caller could choose that, or you could press 2 and leave a message. So if it's not that urgent and you're okay leaving a message, again, giving the caller the ability to self-direct themselves while they're in queue. I'm just going to make this agent ready so that we can take this caller. And so as soon as I do so, we're going to pop open the record of our choosing. Let's get the microphones muted. And so in this case, it happens to be the order. Now, I don't need the contact pad. You can see that my phone status has changed and I've got this call connected. I'm actually just going to minimize the contact pad. And this was the order where we read back this information. And this is dynamic. So anything that we put in here, and certainly other fields, could have been read back to that caller, but that was the experience we created for that flow. We also popped open the contact record because we understand that to do anything with this caller and to facilitate this order, likely this contact record of who's calling is going to be useful. The activity record, which we create, that CDR, call detail record that we create about the call, is automatically related to whatever we call that focus object, whatever we brought to the forefront of the screen. And with a single click, I can also link it to any background objects, in this case, Jason's contact record. Maybe he ordered a new product, so I can capture some notes. And I can also capture a call outcome or call disposition, again, leading to very good, granular, deep insight in the reports. And so I think there is an order placed. We've got it associated to the objects. I can save those notes at any point during or after the call. I have the ability, maybe if I have a final question from Jason, if I need to consult with any other agents, I can put him on hold and I pop open a window that gives me visibility not only into the other contact center agents that are within the Vonage Contact Center, but anybody who has a Vonage Business Communication phone set, I also have visibility into their presence. So if I need to transfer to the accounting department or the shipping department or somebody who's not a contact center, I can do so intelligently because I have that presence and status. And so you can see I have all the agents listed alphabetically. I can search for people by name if I wanted to, and I can see who is available and online. So I'm not blindly transferring calls around the contact center. So if I wanted to reach this person, I could highlight them. Joseph, he could help me, and hit dial. I'm not going to do so because Joseph's not expecting a call, but we would then be connected. This box disappears and these soft keys would change in function. I would have a transfer, conference, release, and alternate key. And at that point, I could do whatever's necessary to take this call through to its conclusion. So I'm going to release the call now, because I want to show you a little bit of the activity records and details that we create, because I think it's one of the things that ultimately sets Vonage apart from other players who lightly integrate into Salesforce. So every phone call, every chat, every email that we route, depending upon the level of integration with Salesforce, we're going to write activity records for. And I can use the expanded view and a lot of the functionality within Salesforce to create whatever look and feel makes sense for that user experience. And so by expanding that, I can see some of the notes. And if I needed to understand anything about a phone call, with one of our prospects, one of our customers, I can open up that that activity record, see the detail about that call, any notes that the agent noted, how it was dispositioned. In this case, it was a call and the person had an interest in one of our products, which was called Conversation Analyzer, and we linked to that. And then you get some of this call metadata. Now, this is a basic call record. I'm going to show you a more detailed record momentarily, but this basic activity record is good for, baseline reporting, understanding the general parameters of where calls are coming from, and also having very quick and easy access to the recorded calls. Because we do have the ability to record all the calls in Salesforce, you can get a link to those call recordings. They remain stored on our secure platform, encrypted, but they can be streamed securely so that you get the functionality of having the call recordings within Salesforce without having to pay the storage fee of actually having them in there. Another nice functionality is the ability to utilize those recordings for any kind of business improvement or coaching or other business uses. So maybe as I'm going through this call recording, my agent did a great job opening. I'd like to make note of that so that when we do our quality review session at the end of the month, I have a few calls that we can go over with notation. Now, you also can actually create a quality monitoring scorecard right on the activity record as we've done here. I'm not going to go through the scoring of one, but again, just showing that flexibility and the fact that you can actually embed an entire quality monitoring process right within Salesforce utilizing our product and our native recording. But I did mention that we capture, I think, the most detailed record. And so as we go into our advanced package, our advanced reporting package, which is typically now included in almost every commercial deal, we create a second record about the phone call. And it's the basis not only for our advanced reports, but also for the Conversation Analyzer, which is what I'm going to segue into momentarily. But this more advanced record gives you much greater detail about the call, so I can see kind of visually what this caller went through. I can see that in this particular case, there were 2 agents involved, so some sort of conference or transfer must have occurred. And as I go down through the details of this record, you can see the very vast segmentation and detail, which really provides any contact center the baseline metrics that they can utilize to create service level, however they want to measure it, to really understand the details of where opportunities may lie for improvement. Most importantly, accurately reflecting the amount of time that the first agent may have been in control of the call versus the second agent. This is a place where many vendors have to make a compromise. They only have a single agent field. They don't have the ability to properly track calls that traverse multiple agents. And so again, some of the differentiation. But it's also, as I mentioned, the baseline for Conversation Analyzer. So since we are recording all of the phone calls, wouldn't it be great if we could fully transcribe those phone calls and look into the conversation for business insight, for topics of discussion, for opportunities where agents might need to be trained, for mentions of product problems that we didn't know about, any type of business intelligence that you want to define. And so Conversation Analyzer gives you that deeper view into your phone call so that you can understand that overall customer journey. We begin to introduce some additional statistics like what was the percent of time that an agent may have been talking versus a customer, because maybe there's some analysis or some something you could do there that says, this agent is talking too much and not listening. And if there was any talk over, there would be a red segment in this donut. And maybe the 35% silence tells me there's something wrong going on here. But whatever those are, those additional metrics with each and every phone call now become business intelligence that you can make use of. Then you have the ability to create whatever categories you want. These are just demo categories that we've created. And you can see the various subcategories that will roll up into these different larger buckets. And in this particular phone call, you can see the number of times that we triggered any one of the categories that we said constituted a complaint or constituted good closing verbiage or empathy or whatever it was we were looking for. Now I'm just going to hide these subcategories to go through the user interface. I would have the ability, if I want to to see where those different matches are along this call timeline. I could click on any of these and it would bring me right to that point in the conversation. I can see all the significant call events. I can separately analyze the caller or the agent talk path here in green versus the caller talk path. I have that same ability to listen to the call recording and make those same comments like I did in that prior user interface. And then most importantly, I get the conversation transcript accurately transcribed and broken out separately by agent and customer. And anywhere that I found verbiage that I was looking for, I'll get the color-coded indication of the category it was a party of. And I get that literally through the entire conversation, soup to nuts. If I included a post-call survey, which is a capability we have, I didn't show it to you on the demo just based on time, but even that survey could be included in the transcription and you could see how the customer answered. If you asked for feedback, whatever it was they said, that would all be transcribed and available and surfaced to you as well. So this is a great amount of detail. As I continue to flow through that call record, I see all of the analytics that we gather with Conversation Analyzer. So whatever categories you create, those will all get checked and automatically you'll start to gather statistics on the numbers of times that various things were found, and they all become reportable data within your business intelligence solution. You have the ability to understand the entire call plan and every applet it went through on our system. So a great amount of visibility and detail. And then last but not least, we take that entire call transcript and natively deposit it in a large Salesforce field so that you would also have native access to get at it for any other useful business reasons within your enterprise. And we take all of that detail for each and every phone call. And so while that's very insightful and very useful at understanding root cause, the real magic comes from understanding how to look at this in a larger context across your enterprise. And so we will typically work with and partner and lead our prospects towards Salesforce for use of Einstein Analytics or other intelligence. Because we're creating such a deep and complex record, you would benefit from having a more complex analytics tool to consume or analyze that data. So just as a quick example of what that may look like, here's an example of a contact center manager. And since this COVID-19 crisis has hit us, we're doing a lot more deliveries of things to our end users, and we're getting complaints that those deliveries are not arriving and that we're not handling that very well. So I want to try to solve for that. And I know I've got all these great call recordings, but how do I go about doing that? So we've created this little dashboard, and I've got the ability to do all of the standard metadata sorting that you would do in a reporting solution. What agent, what date, those types of things. But I want to focus on the conversational aspects because that's really the unique and insightful thing that we're doing here. So in this example, I've got a call repository of 726 calls, and they've all got random combinations of these various attributes that I'm looking for. But we were smart enough to create some categories ahead of time, anticipating that we would want to go looking for complaints and want to go understanding how our deliveries were. And so we created a complaint handling category. So I can start to, in real time, utilizing this dashboard, drill into the transcripts and start to sort only on those where I saw instances of complaints and us trying to handle those complaints. And so that narrowed it down to 103. Okay, that's great, but that's still a lot of phone calls. Well, we also have one around deliveries because we know delivery is a big part of our kind of end use supply chain to our customer. And so now as I do a couple of quick clicks, I've gone from 800 random phone calls to 4 very focused phone calls that are specifically talking about delivery problems, complaints, and handling it. And here are those 4 records. I could literally open those records up and get right back to this level of detail and drill down and look at the conversation transcript and see exactly what was said there. So when we talk about the deep integration to Salesforce and the ability to really take that all the way to really creating that great user experience, that great customer experience, these are the kinds of examples and ways that we differentiate the integration that we do. We've got a whole host of capabilities when you jump into the Vonage Contact Center to look at real-time conditions in the contact center. You can create custom dashboards. It's well beyond what I'll be able to show you here, but literally all of this can be customized any way you want. And so I've really created a dashboard just trying to show you the different types of widgets or display mechanisms that we have and how you can utilize them to display data as appropriate. So, wanting to understand, how your queues are doing or your agents, maybe a table makes sense. If you're just trying to understand how many calls are waiting, maybe a nice big number that turns colors as different thresholds are exceeded makes sense. So a lot that we can offer. I'm mindful of the time and want to leave the 10 minutes for some question and answer, but I hope this was a good introduction. And certainly we would welcome the opportunity to do a deeper dive with some of your opportunities and prospects going forward. So I'm going to relinquish screen control here. I don't know, Stacy, if you or Dan have control.
Yeah, I have it. Thank you. This was great. Just a friendly reminder, we're going to be sending a recorded webinar to all the registrants. So if there's anything you want to listen to or see again, you'll be able to just keep an eye on your inbox. I know Dan alluded to that earlier. We do have a couple of questions if you guys are ready. This one's kind of more for you, John, but Dan, if you have insight into it, please address whatever you feel comfortable, the Salesforce Amazon Connect entry into this space.
I'd like to grab that. Yeah, so this is John, and it's certainly very topical. Salesforce has kind of just announced Service Cloud Voice. It's either just released or just about to be released. It seems a little murky here right at the bottom line, but the net effect is that we can work with Service Cloud Voice. In many cases, we can do things Service Cloud Voice cannot do. So our approach with Salesforce is not necessarily to try to compete with the early rollout of Service Cloud Voice, but to try to find opportunities where the requirements are beyond what it can do. It is a soft phone only solution to begin with. It's limited countries. There are some other kind of limitations that I don't want to necessarily tie this webinar up going over, but it's also relevant that we are going to be one of the very first partners in the first quarter of 2021 in what they're calling bring your own telephony. So we're going to be one of those initial partners bringing our own telephony and plugging directly into Service Cloud Voice. So for the short term, we're trying to complement their efforts and just try to support and find opportunities where there may be some shortcomings and gaps that we can fill. I don't know, Dan, if you have any additional insight.
I would only say that that's compliment with an E, not an I.
Very good.
Okay, the next one's for John too. Can you create a custom wallboard that would be accessible by all agents via browser?
That's an easy one. Yes.
Perfect.
Standard out of the box functionality in all of our packages.
Awesome. I think the next one is you too. Can you record 100% of calls regardless of whether they are an agent or not?
Yes. Standard capability. Most times we start from 100%, and for various reasons, customers will turn off some segment, but we can support up to 100% of all phone calls and record them.
Great. The next question is more of a marketing question. What verticals are typically needing these call center features? Do you see it much in healthcare? And I think, John, you can add a lot of flavor to that.
So healthcare is obviously the new hot vertical that we're all seeing, and the COVID thing only just kind of inflamed it. But a lot of this kind of deep customer experience differentiation really spans across verticals. So I don't want people to get set on just one vertical or the other. I would say the two hot verticals this year appear to be financial services or FINS and healthcare or HLS. Both of them have historically been laggards to new technology because of privacy, think HIPAA in the healthcare space, and PCI and some of the other nuances that exist within the financial services space.
Okay. Next question. Oh yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Do you see the look at the question in the chat about GDPR handled between
Yes, we're
Salesforce
going to hit
and
that
Vonage and the
one.
call record. Okay, sorry.
No. That's good. I do have eyes on it too. There's a quick one, and then I think that one's going to be a little more in depth. Is this recorded webinar good also for clients, or do you have less heavy ones? I think you could show this to a client, but we also have a bunch of things on our YouTube page that are definitely more commercialized for the end user. So I would invite you to check that out. There's a lot of call center quick hit features that John has actually done for us, and some longer ones, but there's a bunch of resources on our YouTube channel that would be, I think, better for clients. But John or Dan, do you have anything to add there as well?
I agree. The YouTube stuff I think is better for prospect or customer consumption. So yeah.
Well, and I got to tell you, I think the improvements in the website it's a fantastic initial resource. If you go to our website, lots of customer stories there, lots of different things that they can use to really start to get the flavor.
Yeah, I agree. The web team definitely been hard at work since the launch of our new website, which only happened in March. So if you haven't checked it out, please, we encourage you to visit. The next question is the one that Dan mentioned. How is GDPR handled between Salesforce and Vonage, where call recording is stored separately? Also, can the location of voice recording be intelligently directed to the geography of the caller?
All right, so there's a couple layers to unpack on that. So with our summer release, we've actually increased the granularity of control that you have over various aspects of your data, specifically to address GDPR concerns and controls. Because we don't store a lot of identifying data in our platform and write so much of it into Salesforce, to some degree, it's not a Salesforce issue, but it's subject to whatever your data retention policies are in Salesforce. But we have recently put two separate controls so that you could individually control what level of statistics that you keep within our system, and you could scrub any identifying piece of data you want. And also likewise, the call recordings are stored securely in our cloud, and then you can determine the amount of time you want to store them for. So some customers will say, I want 30 days and then just flush them. And so we only have 30 days of recording. Lastly, we do have a recording API. If for some reason you want to store the recordings elsewhere, you can develop that API and create that storage, but it would be additive to what we're already doing, because we already have a very secure and encrypted storage site. So we don't see a lot of customers making use of it, although it does exist. Okay. Oh, the last one, and it may be because of the locations of the geo of the caller. So right now, there are circumstances where we do have to kind of work with customers. Prime example might be Canada at this point. We don't have a separate data center in Canada. And if they have a physical requirement that those call recordings are stored in Canada and not in US, then we would have to go to the API development and stream those recordings to a secure location of their choosing and design. We could do it, but it's not an out-of-the-box capability. We would have to develop it.
Okay, we still have a bunch of other questions, but I'm going to pause for now because I want to be conscious of people's time. But we have those questions recorded, and we can get your channel managers to reach out to you and answer them. So we will take care of that on the back end. And I just want to close this out and say thank you to Dan and John. This was great. Thank you also to everyone attending. I know I mentioned this earlier, but we've moved this to a bi-weekly series. So our next webinar will be on August 22nd. And within that sales enablement focus for the third quarter, we're excited to announce the next topic will be around LinkedIn best practices. We've managed to get a few experts from LinkedIn, Tina Basil and Andrew Day, to walk us through some tips and tricks for not only your personal and company brands, but also advertising and recruiting practices. They're seasoned veterans over there, and we're thrilled that they've agreed to share some secrets with all of you. So keep an eye out for that invite in your inbox. Have a wonderful rest of the day. And as always, stay safe and be well. Thank you again to Dan and John. This was great. And again, the questions we didn't get to, we will have your channel managers reach out. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks, John.